The alarm blared at precisely 0500 hours, jolting Cadet Mira Nakamura from a dreamless sleep. She groaned, momentarily forgetting where she was before the cold reality of her surroundings settled in. The Spartan quarters of Camp Aurora, humanity's first orbital training facility circling the frontier planet Varel 7. "Rise and shine, trainees," Commander Rao's voice thundered through the station's intercom. "Zero-G tactics in Module 4. 3 minutes to gear up." Mira pulled herself from her bunk with practiced movements, her body now accustomed to the station's reduced gravity. 5 years into humanity's first interstellar expansion. And this was where she'd ended up, trading her promising career in astrophysics for military training on the edge of known space. "You look like hell," observed Jax Voss, his stocky frame already suited up in the standard-issue training gear. His permanent smirk contrasted with the tension in his shoulders. Jax had been a hotshot pilot back on Earth, the kind who flew by instinct rather than protocol. Out here, that made him both an asset and a liability. "Tactical assessment. Voss," Mira replied, fastening her suit with practiced efficiency. "You need to work on it." Lyra Sell emerged from the adjacent quarters, her gear meticulously arranged, not a strap out of place. "Commander Rao added a surprise component to today's drill," she said, her voice carrying the slight tremor it always did before exercises. "Something about heightened stakes." Mira nodded, studying her fellow trainee. Where Jax was all impulse and instinct, Lyra was caution personified, brilliant at theory, hesitant in execution. A former logistics specialist, she planned for every contingency except the unpredictable ones. 2 minutes, trainees, Rao's voice cut through their conversation. "Betting it's another oxygen deprivation scenario," Jack said, checking his suit seals. "Rao loves watching us gasp." "My money's on comms failure," Mira countered, pulling her hair into a tight knot before sealing her helmet. "He's been drilling protocols all week." They made their way through the utilitarian corridors of Camp Aurora, a ramshackle assembly of modules built more for function than comfort. The station was humanity's first attempt at an orbital military facility, a statement of intent as much as a practical outpost. Through the occasional viewport, Mira caught glimpses of Varel 7's azure surface below, swirled with white cloud formations that reminded her of Earth's oceans. Module 4, their tactical training center, loomed ahead, its reinforced doors bearing the scars of previous training accidents. Commander Rao stood at the entrance, his imposing frame made more so by the rigid posture he maintained. At 53, Rao was a veteran of Earth's last major conflict, the kind of officer who had seen enough combat to respect its cost while preparing his trainees for its inevitability. 30 seconds to spare, he noted as the 3 cadets approached. "Sell, your helmet seal is crooked. Fix it. Voss, stand straighter. You're a soldier, not a tourist. Nakamura, good form." Mira nodded at the rare compliment. Over the past 6 months, she'd learned that Rao's approval was as sparing as water on a desert planet. Today's exercise, he continued once they'd assembled with the other 12 trainees, focuses on rapid response in compromised environments. You will navigate a series of obstacles while contending with system failures. Remember, in space. "Mistakes are measured in lives, sir," the trainees responded in unison. "Precisely." The hint of a smile crossed Rao's weathered face. "Now, into the module. The scenario begins in 30 seconds. The interior of Module 4 was a maze of reconfigurable walls, obstacles, and training dummies designed to simulate everything from zero-G rescue to hostile boarding actions. Today, it had been arranged as an emergency response course, ruptured panels, sparking consoles, and dummy casualties floating in eerie suspension. Mira checked her suit readings one last time as the trainees spread throughout the module, taking positions according to their assigned roles. She'd been designated team leader for this exercise, a position that still felt uncomfortable despite her growing confidence. Teams Alpha and Beta, confirm positions, she called through the comms. Alpha in position, Jax responded from his station near the module's central hub. Beta ready, came Lyra's steady voice, though Mira could detect the underlying tension. Exercise commences in 5, 4. Commander Rao's countdown was interrupted by a violent shudder that rippled through the entire station. For a moment, Mira thought it was part of the simulation, until a second, more powerful impact sent her floating uncontrollably across the module. Warning lights flashed, bathing the interior in crimson. The station's main alarm, not the training klaxon but the actual emergency siren, began to wail. Through the viewport, Mira glimpsed something that made her blood freeze. The adjacent Module 6 erupting in a silent, devastating explosion. Debris spinning outward in a deadly cloud. "Sir," she called out, "is this—" "Maintain positions." Rao's voice cut through the chaos, remarkably calm. "This is now a live exercise. Respond according to protocols." Mira's training kicked in even as her mind raced. A live exercise? This was far beyond any drill they'd faced before. The destruction she'd witnessed through the viewport was real, too real for comfort. "Alpha Team, secure the emergency bulkheads," she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. "Beta Team, begin casualty assessment." "You've got to be kidding." Jax's voice crackled over the comms. "That was an actual explosion. Module 6 is gone." "Then we follow emergency protocols," Mira replied firmly. "Just like we trained. Move." As the team scrambled to respond, Mira caught Commander Rao's eye across the chaos of the module. There was something in his expression, a flash of genuine concern quickly masked by professional composure, that confirmed her suspicion. This was no drill, regardless of what he claimed. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. But if treating it as an exercise kept panic at bay and protocols in place, then that's exactly what she would do. Another violent tremor rocked the station. Through the far viewport, Mira spotted them. Sleek, dark shapes moving against the stars. Not maintenance drones or supply shuttles. These moved with purpose, with precision, with hostility. Camp Aurora was under attack. In the command center of Camp Aurora, Base Commander Ellis Thornton watched in horror as the tactical display confirmed what the explosions had already told him. They were under attack by Jari Dominion forces. The old rivals of humanity's expansion had apparently decided that this isolated training facility made an ideal target for a show of force. "Status report," he demanded, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Module 6 completely destroyed." "Sir," his second-in-command reported. "Module 3 heavily damaged. We've lost contact with the Eastern Quadrant. Estimated casualties unknown." Thornton's mind raced. The station housed over 300 personnel, most of them trainees with minimal combat experience. They were a teaching facility, not a combat outpost. Their defenses designed to repel debris and the occasional pirate, not a coordinated military strike. "Alert Central Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements." "Communications are down, sir. The first strike targeted our main array." Of course it did, Thornton thought bitterly. This was no random attack. The Jari knew exactly where to hit them. "What about our training squadron in Module 4? "Life signs stable. Commander Rao has initiated emergency protocols." Thornton paused, an idea forming. "Don't inform them this is an actual attack," he said finally. His second-in-command stared at him. "Sir?" "Let them believe it's an extreme training scenario. If they panic, we lose them. If they follow protocols thinking it's a drill, we might just survive until help arrives." "But sir, that's an order. Lieutenant, now get our defense systems online." As the command center scrambled to respond, Thornton watched another Jari bomber circle for an attack run. His decision was ethically questionable at best, but with limited options and a station full of frightened trainees, maintaining the illusion of control seemed like their best chance of survival. Back in Module 4, Mira directed her team through the chaos. The drill was escalating in ways she'd never imagined possible. The simulation systems were behaving erratically, likely damaged in whatever was happening, creating scenarios that seemed far too realistic. "Hull breach in Section 14, Lyra reported, her voice rising with alarm as she studied the emergency console. "Oxygen levels dropping." "Activate emergency sealant protocol," Mira responded, falling back on her training. "Jax, take Martinez and secure the pressure doors." "On it," Jax replied, already moving. He'd shed his earlier skepticism, embracing the scenario with the intensity he brought to everything. If this was some kind of ultimate test, he wasn't about to fail it. Commander Rao moved between teams, offering guidance but largely allowing Mira to coordinate the response. His expression remained unreadable, though his eyes constantly darted to the external viewports, where the dark shapes continued to maneuver. "Sir." Mira approached him during a momentary lull, keeping her voice low. "The damage patterns don't match any simulation we've run before. And those vessels outside." "Focus on the protocols, Cadet," Rao interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. "Trust your training." Before she could press further, the module shuddered again. This time, the impact was close enough that the reinforced walls actually buckled, and a hairline fracture appeared in the viewport. "Breach imminent," someone shouted. "Seal your helmets," Mira commanded, her own snapping shut with a reassuring hiss. Around her, the other trainees followed suit, movements precise despite the chaos. The fracture in the viewport expanded with frightening speed, a spiderweb of cracks spreading across its surface. Then, with a sound like distant thunder that even their sealed helmets couldn't completely muffle, the viewport gave way. Air rushed outward, carrying with it anything not secured, equipment, tablets, and one unfortunate trainee whose tether had come loose. "Martinez!" Jax shouted, lunging forward to grab the flailing cadet. His fingers closed around a trailing strap, arresting Martinez's trajectory toward the void. But the momentum pulled Jax toward the breach as well. Mira reacted instantly, securing herself to a wall anchor before extending her tether to Jax. "Clip on!" she shouted through the comms. With practiced precision, Jax attached her line to his suit, allowing Mira to help haul both him and Martinez back from the breach. Around them, emergency shields were deploying, transparent barriers designed to seal hull breaches temporarily. Within seconds, the rush of air stopped, though the module remained in zero-G conditions. "Damage report!" Mira called out, her breathing heavy from exertion. "Martinez is injured," Jax reported, examining the trainee who now floated limply in his grasp. "Suit puncture on his left arm. He's losing pressure." "Medical kit to Section 5, Mira ordered. "Lyra, status of the emergency shields?" "Holding for now, but they're rated for debris impact. Not..." Lyra hesitated. "Not whatever this is." "It's a Level 5 catastrophic response drill," Commander Rao announced, his voice carrying through the module. "High Command authorized it without my knowledge to test true emergency readiness." Murmurs spread among the trainees. A Level 5 drill was practically unheard of, the kind of exercise that simulated actual combat conditions with minimal safety protocols. "With respect, sir," Jax said, his voice tight as he applied emergency sealant to Martinez's suit. "They blew up an entire module for a drill?" "Controlled demolition with simulated effects," Rao replied smoothly. The stakes needed to be realistic. Mira caught the commander's eye again, and this time she was certain. He was lying. Whatever was happening was no drill. But she also understood his intent. Panic would only worsen their situation. "You heard the commander," she said, projecting confidence she didn't feel. "This is what we trained for. Alpha Team, complete module seal and begin emergency propulsion preparations. Beta Team, assist with casualties and prepare for possible module separation. We need to be ready to detach if structural integrity becomes compromised." As the teams mobilized, Mira pushed aside her doubts. Drill or attack. Their responses would be the same. Follow protocol. Adapt to changing conditions. And above all, survive. "Impressive leadership, Nakamura," Rao said quietly as he floated beside her. "You're keeping them focused. Just following your example." "Sir," she replied, then added in a lower voice, "Whatever this really is." Rao's expression hardened slightly. "It's a test of human resilience. Cadet. And right now, you're passing." Outside the damaged module, another explosion illuminated the darkness, this one closer than before. Through the emergency shield covering the breached viewport, Mira watched as a section of the station's outer ring disappeared in a silent burst of light and debris. Test or not, they were running out of time. In the darkness of space surrounding Camp Aurora, Squadron Leader Tzerak of the Jari Dominion observed the unfolding destruction with clinical detachment. The human station was responding exactly as anticipated, chaotically, with minimal effective defense. Their weapon systems remained dormant, their communications silenced. It was almost disappointing how easily the target had been neutralized. "Second wave in position," his tactical officer reported, "awaiting your command to continue the demonstration." Tzerak's four-fingered hand tapped thoughtfully against the arm of his command chair. "Curious. Their central modules still show life signs, yet they've mounted no counteroffensive. Perhaps they're simply paralyzed with fear," the tactical officer suggested. "Humans are known to be emotionally volatile." Perhaps. But something didn't align with Jari intelligence. Humans were unpredictable. Yes, but also remarkably adaptive. This passive response was unexpected. "Delay the second wave. I want visual confirmation of the central module's status." "As you command." As his stealth bomber circled the damaged station, Tzerak studied the sensor readings more carefully. The humans were definitely alive. And if he wasn't mistaken, they were organizing, not retreating, not panicking, but methodically responding to the attack as if it were a training exercise. The realization struck him with surprising force. Could they possibly be so arrogant, so disconnected from reality, that they mistook an actual attack for one of their drills? The absurdity of it almost made him reconsider the entire operation. "Launch a single proximity charge," he ordered suddenly. "Target their central module, close enough to be unmistakable, but not to destroy it. Let us see how they respond when death is undeniable." The weapon streaked away from his vessel, a bright point of light against the darkness. The proximity charge detonated mere meters from Module 4, close enough that the concussive force transmitted through the station's structure and sent the trainees tumbling in the zero-G environment. Equipment tore free from wall mounts, and the emergency shields flickered ominously. "That was no simulation," Jax shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Commander, we're under actual attack." Murmurs of alarm spread through the module. Mira watched as fear began to register on faces that had remained professional until now. The illusion was breaking. Commander Rao raised his hands for silence. Cadets, listen carefully. Yes, we are experiencing an actual attack. He spoke calmly, but with an authority that immediately commanded attention. But your response remains the same, whether this is a drill or reality. The protocols exist for a reason. Who's attacking us? Lyra asked, her voice remarkably steady despite the circumstances. Based on vessel configuration, the Jari Dominion, Rao answered. They've been testing our boundaries since first contact. This appears to be an escalation. We're trainees, not combat personnel. Another cadet protested. What are we supposed to do against a military strike? Survive, Mira stated firmly, floating to Rao's side. We follow emergency protocols, secure our position, and prepare for rescue operations. She turned to the commander. Sir, what's the status of the station's defense systems? Rao's expression tightened. Unknown. Communications with command are down. Then we need to establish them. Mira decided. The auxiliary comms array in Module 2 should still be operational if the attack pattern I observed is consistent. We need a team to reach it. That's a combat mission, Jax pointed out, against an actual enemy force. It's a training objective with elevated stakes, Mira countered, deliberately echoing the language of their exercises. Just like any other drill, but with real consequences for success or failure. She watched as her words registered with the other trainees. The familiarity of the framework, the idea that this was just another challenge to overcome, seemed to steady them. I need 3 volunteers, she continued. We'll need to traverse exposed sections to reach Module 2. I'm in, Jax said immediately. His earlier panic transformed into determined focus. Me too, Lyra added, surprising everyone, including herself. Martinez, now conscious but still recovering from his injury, raised his hand weakly. I can guide from here. The comm systems were my specialty back on Earth. Mira nodded. The rest of you will secure this module and prepare for possible evacuation. If we can't contact help, we may need to use the emergency shuttles. Commander Rao watched the exchange with undisguised approval. I'll coordinate from here, maintain contact through emergency channels, and prepare the shuttles. He placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. Cadet Nakamura is in command of the mission team. Follow her orders as you would mine. Mira felt the weight of responsibility settle over her, heavier than any gravity. We'll move in 15 minutes. Gather necessary equipment and check your suits thoroughly. We won't get a second chance if something fails out there. As the trainees dispersed to their tasks, Rao pulled her aside. This isn't what I trained you for, he admitted quietly. But it is what I trained you to be ready for. I understand, sir. The Jari aren't known for taking prisoners. Nakamura, if you can't establish communications. We'll find another way, she interrupted, unwilling to accept the implied alternative. Humans are adaptable. Isn't that what you've been drilling into us? Time to prove it. A ghost of a smile touched Rao's lips. Indeed it is, cadet. Indeed it is. 15 minutes later. Mira, Jax, and Lyra stood at the emergency airlock that would lead them outside the relative safety of Module 4 and into the exposed superstructure of the damaged station. Each carried emergency repair kits, navigation units, and sidearms, the latter an addition Rao had insisted upon, though none of them had expected to use actual weapons during their training. Comms check, Mira said, testing her helmet system. Loud and clear, Jax responded. Receiving, Lyra confirmed. Remember, stick to the maintenance rails, Mira instructed. Minimize exposure time. If you spot Zari vessels, do not engage. Our objective is the comms array, not combat. They nodded, faces set with determination behind their visors. Depressurizing airlock, Mira announced, activating the sequence. As the air hissed out of the small chamber, she steadied her breathing. She'd trained for spacewalks, but never under combat conditions. The difference was like comparing swimming in a pool to being thrown into the ocean during a hurricane. The airlock's external door slid open, revealing the stark reality of their situation. Camp Aurora, once a symmetrical assembly of modules and connecting tubes, now resembled a shattered skeleton. 2 of the 8 modules were completely gone, while others showed significant damage. Debris floated in lazy orbits around the station, some of it recognizably human in origin, some unidentifiable. And beyond it all, the dark shapes of Jari vessels moved like predators circling wounded prey. "Stay close to the station's structure," Mira ordered, leading the way out onto the maintenance rails, narrow tracks designed for repair drones, but usable by suited humans in emergencies. Use the debris for visual cover when possible. They moved in single file, magnetic boots, securing them to the rails despite the zero-G environment. The journey to Module 2 would take them across nearly a quarter of the station's circumference, exposed to both the vacuum of space and potential enemy fire the entire way. Halfway to their destination, disaster struck. A Jari vessel, smaller than the bombers they'd observed earlier, appeared from behind a section of damaged hull. Its sleek, predatory design marked it as a scout ship, likely investigating the results of the attack. "Hold position," Mira whispered, though she knew the Jari couldn't possibly hear them through the vacuum. The 3 trainees froze, their dark suits blending with the station's exterior in the shadow of a solar panel. The scout ship drifted closer, searchlights sweeping over the debris field. One beam passed within meters of their position, and Mira held her breath despite the irrationality of the gesture. Discovery now would mean certain death. The light moved on, and for a moment, Mira thought they'd escaped notice. Then, with alarming suddenness, the searchlight swung back, fixing directly on their position. "Move!" she shouted, abandoning stealth for speed. "To the maintenance hatch!" They broke formation, pushing off from the rails toward a service entrance 50 meters ahead. Behind them, the scout ship's weapon systems hummed to life, visible as a brightening glow along its forward array. "Incoming!" Jax warned. The first shot missed, striking the station's hull several meters to their right. The second came closer, severing a section of the maintenance rail behind them. Lyra stumbled as the rail beneath her vibrated from the impact, her magnetic boot losing contact momentarily. "I've got you," Mira called, extending a hand to stabilize her teammate. Together, they pushed toward the hatch, where Jax was already working the manual override to open it. The third shot didn't miss. It struck the hull directly above the hatch, sending a shower of superheated metal fragments in all directions. Mira felt a sharp impact against her suit, followed by the dreaded hiss of escaping air. "Breach," she reported, her training overriding the surge of panic. "Upper left torso." "How bad?" Jax demanded, still wrestling with the hatch controls. Mira glanced at her suit diagnostics. "Manageable. Emergency sealant deploying." The self-repair systems in her suit had already identified the breach and were applying internal patches. But she had perhaps 15 minutes of air before the sealant failed. Less if she exerted herself. With a metallic groan, the hatch finally yielded to Jax's efforts, revealing a small airlock beyond. The 3 trainees tumbled inside, securing the outer door just as another barrage from the scout ship struck their position. "Pressurizing," Lyra announced, activating the airlock controls. 2 minutes to equalization. "The Jari know where we are," Jax pointed out unnecessarily, "and that hatch won't withstand concentrated fire." "Then we move quickly," Mira replied, checking her suit's sealant status. The patch was holding, but her oxygen levels were declining faster than she'd like. Once inside, we sprint for the comms array. No detours, no hesitation. As the airlock completed its cycle, they removed their helmets briefly to conserve suit oxygen. The air in Module 2 was thin and cold, environmental systems clearly operating at minimal capacity, but breathable. Comms array is 2 levels up, Lyra reported, consulting her tablet. Lifts are down, so we'll need to use the maintenance shafts. Of course we will, Jax muttered, but there was no real complaint in his tone, just the gallows humor that often surfaced in dire situations. They moved through the dimly lit corridors of Module 2, the emergency lighting casting everything in an eerie red glow. The module appeared deserted, its personnel either evacuated or... Mira pushed away the alternative thought. Focus on the mission. The maintenance shaft was a narrow vertical tube with ladder rungs embedded in its walls, designed for technicians to access critical systems when automated repairs failed. In normal gravity, climbing it would be strenuous, but straightforward. In the current reduced gravity conditions, it was awkward, but manageable. I'll take point, Mira decided, replacing her helmet as they prepared to ascend. Jax, you're in the middle. Lyra, watch our backs. The climb was tense, their progress punctuated by distant sounds of impacts against the station's hull. The Jari were continuing their attack, though with less intensity than before, perhaps confident that the initial strikes had neutralized any significant resistance. They emerged onto the command level of Module 2, a circular chamber lined with workstations and dominated by a central holographic display currently showing only static. Like the lower level, it appeared abandoned. There, Lyra pointed to a sealed door at the far side of the chamber. Auxiliary communications. They crossed the room cautiously, weapons drawn. Mira's suit alarm had begun a low, persistent beeping, warning that her oxygen reserves were approaching critical levels. The sealant was failing faster than expected, likely due to the exertion of the climb. Nakamura, your suit, Jax said, noticing her labored breathing. I'm fine, she insisted. Focus on the door. The communications room was locked, its access panel requiring command-level authorization. I can bypass it, Lyra said, already connecting her tablet to the panel. But it will take time. Which we don't have, Jax pointed out. He stepped back, raised his sidearm, and before either of his teammates could object, fired 3 precise shots into the panel. The door slid open with a protesting whine. Unconventional, Mira commented, but effective. I live to impress, Jax replied with a hint of his old cockiness. The auxiliary communications array was a compact version of the main system that had been destroyed in the initial attack. Lyra immediately moved to the central console, her fingers flying over the controls with practiced ease. Systems intact, she reported, but operating on emergency power. We'll have 1 transmission at most before the reserves are depleted. Make it count, Mira instructed, removing her helmet as the room's dedicated life support activated. The relief of fresh air was immediate, though she knew it was temporary. Her suit would need proper repairs before she could risk vacuum exposure again. Lyra established a connection to the emergency channel, but before she could transmit, the console lit up with an incoming signal. It's from inside the station, she said, surprised. Command center is still operational. Put it through, Mira ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the strained face of Base Commander Thornton. He looked shocked to see them. Cadets, how did you reach the auxiliary comms? We walked, sir, Jax replied dryly. Well, floated and climbed. Technically. Mira shot him a warning glance before addressing Thornton. Sir, we've established communications capacity. What's the station's status? Thornton's expression was grim. Critical. We've lost modules 3, 6, and 8. Life support is failing in the remaining sections. Evacuation is underway. But he hesitated. The Jari are targeting our escape vessels. Sir, have reinforcements been contacted? Mira asked. Negative. All long-range communications were destroyed in the first strike. This internal system is all we have left. Mira exchanged glances with her teammates. Without external communications, help wasn't coming. They were on their own. Sir, what about the station's defense systems? She asked. Automated defenses were taken offline for the training exercises, Thornton admitted, his voice heavy with regret. Manual control requires access to the defense control room in Module 7, which is still intact. Yes, but the connecting passage was severed. It would require another EVA to reach it. Mira considered their options, acutely aware that each passing second brought more Jari attacks. If they could activate the station's defenses, they might at least buy time for the evacuation. Sir, we'll proceed to Module 7 and activate the defense systems, she decided. That wasn't a request. Cadet, Thornton said sharply. It's too dangerous. Proceed to the nearest evacuation point immediately. With respect. Sir, if those defenses remain offline, none of the evacuation shuttles will make it past the Jari. We're already suited up, and we've proven we can navigate externally. Thornton looked like he wanted to argue further, but the reality of their situation overrode protocol. Very well, Cadet Nakamura. But be advised, Module 7 may still have Jari borders. We detected unusual readings before losing external sensors. Understood, sir. We'll proceed with caution. As the communication ended, Jax turned to Mira. Borders? That wasn't part of the drill description. Nothing about today has gone according to the training manual, she replied, checking her sidearm. Which means we improvise. She turned to Lyra. Can you interface with the station's remaining sensors from here? Give us a clearer picture of what we're facing. Lyra nodded, already working the console. Pulling up external feeds now. The holographic display changed to show multiple views of the station's exterior. The Jari presence had increased. At least 6 vessels of varying sizes now circled Camp Aurora, occasionally firing at the structure, but with a precision that suggested they were deliberately avoiding total destruction. They're not trying to obliterate us, Mira observed. They could have done that with their first strike. This is something else. A test, Lyra suggested, or a demonstration. Either way, they didn't expect resistance, Jax added, which means we still have the element of surprise. There, Lyra pointed to one section of the display. That's our route to Module 7. The maintenance rails are intact, but she hesitated. There's a Jari shuttle docked at the module's secondary airlock. Confirming borders, Mira said grimly. Adjust the plan. We reach Module 7, neutralize any hostiles, and activate the defense systems. She turned to Jax. How's your zero-G combat training coming along? He grinned. Top of the class. Though I didn't expect the final exam so soon. Lyra, what about the defense systems themselves? Can we operate them with just the 3 of us? Lyra studied the schematics on her tablet. The automation is offline, but the weapons themselves are functional. We'd need to target manually, 1 person per turret station. Perfect. We each take a station. Mira checked her suit diagnostics again. The temporary exposure to atmosphere had helped, but her oxygen levels were still concerning. I need a replacement suit before we go back out. Emergency lockers on this level, Lyra suggested. Standard procedure places them near the main airlock. They located the emergency equipment storage without difficulty, and Mira quickly transferred to a fresh suit. As she sealed the helmet, she ran through their plan again mentally, looking for weaknesses. There were many, too many for comfort. but no alternatives that offered better odds. "Ready?" she asked her teammates. They nodded, faces set with determination that would have made Commander Rao proud. "Then let's show the Jari why humans are the worst species to underestimate." Outside Module 2, the silent ballet of destruction continued. The Jari vessels maintained their predatory circling, occasionally firing at the station with calculated precision. They were clearly savoring their victory, confident in their superiority over the seemingly helpless human outpost, which meant none of them were paying particular attention to three small figures that emerged from a maintenance hatch and began making their way along the station's exterior toward Module 7. Squadron Leader Zerak was growing impatient. The demonstration had achieved its objectives. The human training facility was crippled, their defenses proven inadequate, their response disorganized. It was time to deliver the final message and withdraw. "Prepare boarding teams for final assessment," he ordered. "I want prisoners from their command structure for interrogation." "The first team reports resistance in Module 7, his tactical officer replied. "Minor, but unexpected." Zerak's inner eyelids flickered, the Jari equivalent of a frown. "Elaborate." "3 humans, apparently trainees based on their insignia, attempting to access the defense control systems." "Eliminate them," Zerak said dismissively. "Then proceed with the command capture." "Yes, Squadron Leader." As his subordinate relayed the orders, Zerak returned his attention to the tactical display. The humans' response continued to puzzle him. Their evacuation efforts were proceeding with unexpected efficiency, their personnel displaying discipline that contradicted Jari intelligence assessments. It was almost as if they had been training for exactly this scenario. A new alert drew his attention. One of the station's defensive turrets, previously dormant, was showing power fluctuations. "Impossible," he muttered. Those systems had been neutralized in the first strike. Unless the humans were more resourceful than anyone had anticipated. "All vessels, evasive pattern delta," he commanded sharply. "Prepare for possible defensive fire." His warning came seconds too late. The turret, a dual-barrel energy weapon designed for asteroid deflection, but equally effective against spacecraft, swiveled toward the nearest Jari bomber and fired. The blast caught the vessel's starboard engine, sending it into an uncontrolled spin. "How?" his tactical officer demanded. "Those systems were offline." Zerak didn't waste time on explanations. "Target that module immediately. Full bombardment." But even as he gave the order, a second turret activated, then a third. The supposedly crippled station was awakening, its defensive fangs bared. Inside Module 7's defense control room, Mira, Jax, and Lyra worked with frantic precision. Each operated a manual targeting station, using physical controls that bypassed the automated systems the Jari had disabled. "Turret 3 online," Lyra reported, her earlier hesitation replaced by focused determination. "Targeting the vessel at coordinates 227 by 043. "Confirmed hit on Bomber 2, Jax called out, a fierce grin visible behind his visor. "Not so fun when the target shoots back, is it?" Mira remained focused on her own station, methodically working through the targeting sequence for Turret 1. The controls were crude by modern standards, physical joysticks, and manual rangefinders. But that primitive design had proven to be their salvation. The Jari had disabled the station's sophisticated targeting computers, but overlooked the backup manual systems. The journey to Module 7 had been harrowing. Another EVA across exposed sections of the station, followed by a brief but intense firefight with Jari boarders. The aliens had clearly not expected resistance, which had given the 3 trainees the crucial element of surprise. 2 Jari lay unconscious in the corridor outside, secured with emergency restraints. "They're responding," Mira observed, watching as the Jari vessels broke their leisurely circling pattern and began evasive maneuvers. "Concentrate fire on their engines and weapon systems. We don't need to destroy them. Just convince them this target isn't worth the cost. The defense turrets weren't designed for ship-to-ship combat, but their high-energy output, intended for pulverizing asteroids, proved devastatingly effective against the lightly armored Jari vessels. Within minutes, 2 of the 6 alien craft were disabled, drifting helplessly in orbit. "They're pulling back," Lyra announced, studying the tactical display. "Regrouping at 5,000 meters. They'll be back with a more coordinated approach," Mira warned. "We need to use this window. Jax, contact Commander Rao. Tell him to accelerate the evacuation. All shuttles should launch while the Jari are disorganized." "What about us?" Lyra asked quietly. Mira met her gaze steadily. "We stay at the turrets until the evacuation is complete." The implication was clear. They were the last line of defense, with no guarantee of their own escape. But neither Lyra nor Jax objected. They had come too far, accomplished too much to abandon their posts now. Jax established communication with Module 4, where Rao was coordinating the station's remaining personnel. "Commander, defense systems are active. We're holding the Jari at bay, but not for long. Recommend immediate shuttle launch for all evacuation groups." Rao's voice came through with surprising clarity. "Well done. Cadets, evacuation is proceeding. Shuttles 1 through 4 are already away, using the station's bulk for cover. 5 and 6 are loading now." There was a pause. "We've recovered something you should know about. Patching in Base Commander Thornton." Thornton's voice joined the channel. "Cadets, we've captured a Jari pilot from one of the damaged vessels. Under interrogation, he's revealed their mission parameters." Another pause, this one heavy with significance. "This attack was a test, an assessment of human resilience and adaptability. They wanted to see how we'd respond to a surprise strike." "A test?" Jax exploded. "They killed dozens of people for a test?" "The Jari Dominion doesn't value life the way we do," Thornton replied grimly. "To them, this was a legitimate military exercise, a way to evaluate us as potential threats or allies." Mira absorbed this information, anger mixing with a strange sort of clarity. "So they're not trying to destroy the station entirely. They're watching how we handle crisis." "Exactly. And based on your actions, cadets, I'd say you've given them something unexpected to consider." A new alert flashed on Mira's tactical display. "They're coming back. 6 vessels, including 2 we haven't seen before. Larger signatures. Probably destroyers." "Hold them off as long as you can," Thornton ordered. "Shuttles 5 and 6 need 3 more minutes to clear the station's gravity well." "Understood, sir. We'll give you those minutes." As the communication ended, Mira turned to her teammates. "You heard the commander. 3 minutes." "Against destroyers?" Lyra's voice wavered slightly. "These turrets weren't designed for that class of vessel." "Then we get creative," Mira replied, studying the tactical display. An idea was forming, desperate, probably suicidal, but with a slim chance of success. "Jax, remember the debris field from the destroyed modules?" A slow smile spread across his face as he caught her meaning. "Kinetic impactors. If we can use the turrets to accelerate the larger pieces toward their approach vector." "Exactly. We don't need to destroy their ships, just disrupt their attack run long enough for the shuttles to escape." "I can calculate the optimal impact trajectories," Lyra offered, already working on her tablet. "Give me 30 seconds. As Lyra worked, Mira opened a private channel to Jax. "If this doesn't work..." "It will," he interrupted firmly. "If it doesn't," she persisted, "the emergency pods are on the level below us. Get Lyra out." Jax looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Once. Only if you're right behind us." "Trajectories calculated," Lyra announced. "Transmitting to your targeting systems now." The next 3 minutes were a blur of concentrated action. The turrets, repurposed from defensive weapons to precision tools, fired in carefully timed sequences. Each blast struck a piece of station debris, propelling it toward the approaching Jari vessels. Most missed their targets, but enough found their mark to force the alien ships into evasive maneuvers, disrupting their formation and delaying their attack run. "Shuttle 5 is clear," came Commander Rao's voice over the comms. 6 is launching now. "We've got multiple incoming," Jax warned. "They've adjusted their approach to compensate for the debris." Mira checked the time. 2 minutes. 40 seconds. Not enough. "Prepare for direct defensive fire. Target their forward weapons arrays." The turret swiveled again, this time aiming directly at the lead Jari vessels. The energy blasts seemed pitifully small against the backdrop of the destroyers, but they struck with precision, temporarily blinding the aliens' targeting sensors. "Shuttle 6 is away," Rao reported, beginning their burn to escape velocity. "How many personnel remain on the station?" Mira asked. There was a hesitation before Rao answered. "Myself and Base Commander Thornton. We're launching in the command shuttle now." "And the Jari prisoner?" "Secured aboard. We're taking him back for proper interrogation." 2 minutes. 15 seconds. The Jari vessels were regrouping, adapting to the defensive fire with alarming speed. One of the destroyers broke formation, accelerating toward the fleeing shuttles. "They're going after the evacuees," Lyra reported, her voice tight. "Divert all power to Turret 2, Mira ordered. "Maximum yield. Target that destroyer's propulsion system." The turret's energy capacitors whined as they charged beyond recommended levels. The tactical display flashed warnings about potential system failure, which Mira ignored. They needed one perfect shot. "Firing," Jax announced. The blast that erupted from Turret 2 was blinding, a concentrated beam of energy that bridged the void between the station and the pursuing destroyer. For a moment, it seemed to have no effect. Then the alien vessel shuddered visibly, its engines flickering before going dark. "Direct hit," Jax exulted. "Their main drive is down." 1 minute. 40 seconds. The remaining Jari vessels had reached weapons range of the station itself. The first barrage struck Module 7 with enough force to send the 3 trainees tumbling from their stations. Warning lights flashed as the life support systems began to fail. "That's our cue," Mira said, pushing herself upright. "To the escape pods. Now." They abandoned the defense control room, making their way through corridors that were rapidly decompressing as the module's structural integrity failed. Twice they had to detour around collapsed sections, precious seconds ticking away. The escape pod bay contained 4 single-person emergency vessels, little more than reinforced cockpits with basic propulsion and life support. Designed for short-term survival, they would keep them alive until rescue could arrive. "Get in," Mira ordered, helping Lyra into the first pod. "Set course for the evacuation rendezvous point." Jax hesitated at the entrance to the second pod. "Nakamura." "I'm right behind you," she promised. "Go." As he reluctantly sealed his pod, Mira moved to the bay controls. The module was coming apart around them, vibrations running through the floor as structural beams failed. She activated the launch sequence for the first 2 pods, watching as they ejected safely into space. Only then did she turn to her own pod, just as a final, devastating impact rocked the module. The deck beneath her buckled, sending her crashing against the wall. Pain flared in her side, and she felt the distinct crack of ribs breaking. More alarmingly, her suit integrity alarm began to wail. With grim determination, she pulled herself toward the remaining escape pod. Each movement sent waves of pain through her body, but she forced herself forward. Not after everything they'd accomplished. Not when they were so close. She reached the pod, hauling herself inside with the last of her strength. As the hatch sealed automatically, she fumbled with the launch controls, vision blurring from pain and oxygen deprivation. Her suit was failing rapidly now, the impact having compromised its already damaged systems. The pod systems activated, running through pre-launch checks that seemed to take an eternity. Through the small viewport, Mira could see Module 7 breaking apart, sections of it peeling away into space. The Jari vessels continued their bombardment, methodically reducing the station to rubble. Finally, the launch sequence completed. With a jolt that aggravated her injuries, the escape pod shot away from the disintegrating module, its small thrusters pushing it clear of the immediate danger zone. Mira's last conscious thought, as darkness closed in around her vision, was of pride, not just in herself, but in Jax, Lyra, and all the trainees who had faced an impossible situation and refused to be defeated. Whatever the Jari had hoped to learn from their test, she hoped they'd received the message. Humans were not to be underestimated. The message waiting for Squadron Leader Zerak upon his return to Jari space was unprecedented, a direct communication from the Dominion High Command. He knew before opening it that his career hung in the balance. The operation had achieved its primary objective. The human training facility was destroyed, but at a cost far exceeding projections. 2 destroyers damaged, 3 smaller vessels lost entirely, and most concerning of all, a captured pilot in human hands. Squadron Leader. The High Commander's image appeared in the holographic display, her elongated features set in the neutral expression that, among the Jari, indicated severe displeasure. Your assessment mission has yielded unexpected results. Zerak lowered his head in the traditional gesture of deference. High Commander, I take full responsibility for— Your responsibility is not at issue, she interrupted. The data is— Your recordings of the human response have been analyzed extensively. They are concerning. Zerak felt a flutter of surprise. The humans were disorganized. High Commander, their defense is inadequate. They're trainees, she cut in again. With minimal experience and improvised weaponry, managed to disable 2 of our destroyers and evacuate their personnel under direct fire. More significantly, they adapted to our tactics with remarkable speed. Her inner eyelids flickered rapidly. Most concerning of all, they apparently mistook our military strike for a training exercise. Zerak couldn't suppress his own eyelid flutter. A psychological tactic, surely. They could not possibly have believed. Our cultural analysts believe otherwise. The recordings from your vessels show human communications referring to the attack as a drill and advanced pressure test. They responded not with fear, but with what can only be described as professional enthusiasm. The High Commander's voice carried a note Zerak had never heard before, something almost like respect. A species that treats actual combat as a training opportunity is not one to be underestimated. What are your orders, High Commander? The Dominion Council is reconsidering our expansion strategy in the human frontier. Your mission has demonstrated that direct confrontation may be counterproductive. She paused meaningfully. A more diplomatic approach is being formulated. Zerak struggled to process this shift. We're negotiating with them after this display of force? Precisely because of it, the High Commander replied. Your mission revealed not weakness, but unexpected strength. The humans have now witnessed our military capability, yet they didn't respond with terror or capitulation. Instead, they adapted and overcame. Such resilience merits respect and careful handling. As the communication ended, Zerak stared at the empty display, trying to reconcile his experience with this new direction. He had gone to the human station expecting to deliver a lesson in Jari superiority, Instead, it seemed, his people had been the ones educated. Mira awoke to the sterile white ceiling of a medical facility. For a moment, she thought she was back on Earth, until the slight vibration beneath her and the quality of the artificial light registered. A ship. Then, one of the evacuation vessels. About time, came a familiar voice from beside her bed. Jax sat in a visitor's chair, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled, but his smirk firmly in place. 3 days is a long nap, even for you. 3 days? Her voice came out as a croak, her throat dry from disuse. You had us worried, another voice added. Lyra appeared on her other side, looking tired, but relieved. Your pod was damaged during launch. We almost missed you entirely. Memory flooded back. The attack, the defense turrets, the desperate escape. The station? Completely destroyed, Jax answered. Nothing left but debris. Casualties? A shadow crossed his face. 73 confirmed, another 15 still missing. He brightened slightly. But over 200 made it out. Thanks to you. To us. Mira tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in her ribs. Commander Rao? Base Commander Thornton? Both safe, Lyra assured her. They want to speak with you when you're strong enough. As if summoned by their mention. The door to the medical bay slid open, revealing Commander Rao. He looked older somehow, the events of the past days having left their mark. But his posture remained rigidly military. Cadet Nakamura, he said formally. Good to see you conscious. Thank you, sir. He moved to the foot of her bed, studying her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. I've submitted my report to High Command regarding the events at Camp Aurora. I thought you should know that I've recommended you, Cadet Voss and Cadet Sell, for the citation of exceptional valor. Mira blinked in surprise. The citation was rarely awarded to trainees. In fact, she couldn't recall a single instance in recent history. That's unexpected, sir. As was your performance, Rao replied. All 3 of you exceeded every training parameter, demonstrated exceptional adaptability under extreme conditions, and most importantly, saved countless lives. A hint of pride broke through his professional demeanor. In short, you passed the ultimate test. Even though it wasn't actually a test, Jax pointed out. Especially because it wasn't, Rao countered. Real crisis reveals true character in ways no simulation can match. He straightened, becoming the commander again, rather than the proud mentor. There's more. The Jari Dominion has initiated formal diplomatic contact, requesting peace negotiations. What? The 3 trainees spoke almost in unison. It seems our response to their test made quite an impression. The captured pilot has been cooperative in debriefing. According to him, the Jari expected us to panic, to break under pressure. Instead, they witnessed human adaptability at its finest. Rao allowed himself a small smile. They've reconsidered whether we're worth antagonizing. So all of this, the destruction, the deaths, it actually led to peace? Lyra asked, her voice heavy with the weight of the paradox. Not peace, Rao corrected gently. Understanding, the beginning of respect. The rest will take time and effort. He returned his attention to Mira. High Command has also requested that the 3 of you participate in the preliminary negotiations. Once you've recovered, your first-hand experience will be valuable. Us? Jax looked incredulous. We're trainees, not diplomats. You're the humans who turned a surprise attack into a demonstration of our species' greatest strength, Rao replied. Who better to represent us? After Rao departed, the 3 sat in thoughtful silence for a time. each processing the unexpected turns their lives had taken. "I joined up to see the stars," Jax finally said. "Didn't expect to be making history quite so soon." "I just wanted to prove I could handle pressure," Lyra added quietly. "Be brave when it counted." "And you did," Mira assured her. "We all did." She gazed out the viewport at the stars beyond, thinking of the station that had been their home and training ground, now reduced to orbiting fragments. "Commander Rao told me once that training prepares you for reality, but reality is always the best teacher." "Speaking of training," Jax said with a hint of his old mischief, "do we still have to finish the program? I mean, technically, we passed the ultimate pressure drill." Despite the pain in her ribs, Mira laughed. "Something tells me our education is just beginning." 6 months later, on the newly established joint human-Jari space station Concordia, 3 former trainees stood at attention as Admiral Harris, head of Human Expansion Forces, concluded his address to the assembled dignitaries of both species. "One so we commemorate not just a diplomatic achievement, but a lesson in mutual understanding. The events at Camp Aurora demonstrated that strength comes in many forms, and true wisdom lies in recognizing the value of difference." As the formal ceremony concluded, Mira, now Lieutenant Nakamura, found herself face to face with a Jari officer she recognized from intelligence briefings. Squadron Leader Tzerak, commander of the attack force that had changed everything. "Lieutenant," he greeted her, using the human rank with careful precision. "I have wished to meet you personally." "Squadron Leader," she replied equally formally. "I admit I didn't expect this conversation to ever take place." "Nor did I," he acknowledged, his inner eyelids flickering in what she now recognized as thoughtful consideration. "My mission was to assess human military capacity. I did not anticipate becoming a case study in diplomatic relations." "Life rarely follows the training manual," Mira observed. "That's something we learned rather dramatically." "Indeed." Zerak's head tilted in the Jari gesture of respect. "Your people have a quality we had not fully appreciated. You call it adaptability. We have no direct translation, but we are learning its value. And we're learning that sometimes what looks like an attack can become an opportunity," Mira replied, "though perhaps with fewer explosions next time." A sound emerged from Zerak that Mira belatedly recognized as laughter, a concept the translation matrix still struggled with. "Agreed, Lieutenant. For both our species' sake." As the Jari officer moved away to join his delegation, Commander Rao, now Captain Rao, approached, accompanied by Jax and Lyra. "Well, Lieutenant Nakamura," Rao said, "when I was training you to handle pressure, this wasn't exactly the outcome I envisioned." "No, sir," she agreed. "But you did teach us that the most important skill is adapting to the unexpected and turning catastrophe into opportunity," Jax added with his characteristic grin. "Though I'm still not convinced the Jari understand our sense of humor." "They're adaptable too," Lyra pointed out, "just in different ways." Captain Rao surveyed his former trainees with undisguised pride. In the end, that's what exploration is about. Discovering not just new worlds, but new perspectives, even if they come from unlikely sources. Mira looked around the station, a symbol of cooperation built from the aftermath of conflict, and thought about the strange path that had led them here. From trainees facing a surprise drill to officers forging an unexpected peace. It wasn't the future she had imagined when she'd enlisted. But as her training had taught her, the most valuable plans were the ones you created when the original ones failed. To adaptability, she proposed, raising her glass in the Earth tradition. To advanced pressure drills, Jax countered with a wink. To whatever comes next, Lyra completed. As they toasted their shared journey and uncertain future, Mira caught sight of the station's emblem displayed prominently on the wall, a stylized representation of Earth and Jari Prime orbiting a common star, with the motto inscribed below, "From conflict, understanding." It was, she reflected, a fitting tribute to a lesson learned the hard way. Sometimes the most advanced training comes when you least expect it, and true resilience is measured not by avoiding pressure, but by what you become under it.